He locked the door behind him without saying a word. The air was thick. My heart was racing, and when he reached for me, rough, unrelenting, I knew. He wasn't going to stop until he broke me, and God help me, he did. If you couldn't, look away. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more gripping stories that'll keep you hooked from start to finish. I'll see you in the next one. They say you don't realize the value of peace until it's gone. For me, peace was the smell of vanilla and cinnamon in my mother's kitchen on a cold winter morning. It was the soft creak of the wooden floor beneath my bare feet, the steady hum of her voice as she sang to herself while kneading dough. I can still see the way she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear with her flour-covered fingers. She didn't have a perfect voice. It cracked sometimes when she hit the higher notes. But to me, it sounded like home. "Don't be afraid to make mistakes, Hannah," she used to say when I was little, standing on tiptoe to help her roll the dough. "Just make sure you're brave enough to fix them when they come." I never thought those words would come back to me like a ghost I wasn't ready to face. It happened on an ordinary Thursday. The air smelled like fresh roses and baby's breath as I arranged bouquets for a small wedding. Business wasn't great, but it kept me and Mom afloat. At least that's what I told myself every night when I locked the door and turned off the lights. That afternoon, while digging through the drawer beneath the register, looking for a receipt book I thought I'd misplaced, my fingers brushed against something stiff. It didn't feel like paper. It felt heavier, thicker. I pulled it out and stared at the cream-colored envelope, unmarked and sealed with a piece of tape yellowed with age. I should have put it back. I should have never opened it. But I did. My name hit me first. Typed in black, ink at the top of the page, then the number, $750,000, a loan agreement. My hands started to shake as I read the terms, the date. The signature that wasn't mine, but carried my name. 4 years ago. When I had just turned 18. It didn't make sense. I had never signed anything like this. I wasn't even legally allowed to take out a loan that size. My mind raced, trying to understand how this could exist. Why my name was there. Why it looked so official. And then I saw it. At the bottom of the page, my mother's initials. The breath caught in my throat. No, not her. Not my mother. I stood there, frozen in place, reading the document again and again, hoping that, maybe, somehow, my eyes were lying to me. But they weren't. With shaking hands, I rummaged through the drawer, hoping for something, anything, that would tell me this wasn't real. That's when I found the second paper, a note, folded twice, handwritten. In messy, uneven strokes I hadn't seen in years. My father's handwriting. "Claire, I'm sorry for what I've done. I'm sorry for leaving you and Hannah with this. If you have no other way out, find Ethan Grayson." Ethan Grayson, I stared at the name until the letters blurred. I had heard whispers of it before. The cold-hearted real estate king of New York. The man who bought failing companies and stripped them to the bone. He owned half of the city skyline. A name spoken with fear, sometimes envy, but never kindness. Why had my father written his name? What deal had he made before walking out on us? I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath my feet. The air grew, heavy in my lungs. I could hear my mother in the back room, humming softly as she watered the plants. The same song she used to sing when I was little. Tears welled in my eyes. I couldn't face her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I locked up the shop early that day. I didn't bother turning off the lights. I walked straight home, my mind spinning, my chest so tight it felt like I couldn't breathe. I packed slowly, as if each item weighed 100 pounds. A change of clothes, my wallet, the silver ring my mother had given me when I turned 16. An old photo of us on the porch, smiling like we had the whole world ahead of us. I didn't leave a note. I didn't say goodbye. I couldn't. The bus station was half empty when I arrived. The woman at the counter barely looked up as I handed her a wad of crumpled bills and asked for a one-way ticket to New York. Her nails clicked on the keyboard as she typed. "That'll get you as far as Manhattan," she said, sliding the ticket under the glass. I nodded, my throat too tight to answer. The bus smelled like old coffee and cold metal. I took a seat at the back, pressing my bag to my chest like a shield. Outside the window, the world blurred into shadows and flickering streetlights. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I kept hearing my mother's voice. I kept seeing my father's handwriting. I kept thinking about the man waiting at the end of this road. This man I'd never met, but whose name now felt heavier than the debt itself. I pressed my forehead to the glass, feeling the coolness seep into my skin. I didn't choose this debt. I didn't sign that paper. I didn't ask for any of this, but deep down, I knew I was the only one who could end it. And I would. Whatever it cost me. New York didn't welcome me. It swallowed me whole. The moment I stepped off the bus, the city pressed in on all sides like a living thing. Loud, cold, alive in ways I had never experienced before. The buildings stretched into the sky, glass and steel reflecting the pale morning light. People rushed past me with their heads down, moving like they had somewhere more important to be. None of them even glanced in my direction. I stood there on the sidewalk, clutching my bag, feeling smaller than I had ever felt in my life. I didn't know where to go. I didn't even know if he'd see me. But I had the address. I had the name. Ethan. Grayson. I whispered it under my breath like it was a curse. The building was impossible to miss. Grayson Tower. 52 floors of glass, steel, and silence. It stood like a giant in the heart of Manhattan, daring anyone to challenge its place. In the sky, I didn't belong here. I knew that before I even walked through the front doors. The lobby was marble and gold, cold and perfect. Men in suits stood behind desks, tapping on tablets and whispering into earpieces. Everyone moved with purpose. Everyone except me. I walked up to the front desk, my voice shaking more than I wanted to admit. I'm here to see Mr. Ethan Grayson. The man behind the counter looked up, raising an eyebrow like I had just asked to speak to the president. "Do you have an appointment, ma'am?" I swallowed hard. "No. But tell him. Tell him my name is Hannah Taylor. My mother is Claire Taylor." Something in his expression shifted, almost too fast for me to catch. Without another word, he picked up the phone, murmured something too quiet for me to hear, then nodded once and gestured toward the elevators. 52nd floor. Penthouse conference room. My legs barely worked as I crossed the polished floor. My reflection followed me in the glass walls, messy hair, cheap clothes, a girl who looked like she had no business being there. The elevator doors opened to silence. No music, no receptionist, just a long hallway lined with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. At the end of the hall, him, Ethan Grayson. He stood by the window, hands in his pockets, back to me. His reflection shimmered in the glass like a ghost. Dark suit, broad shoulders, sharp lines. He didn't turn when I stepped inside. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I'm Hannah Taylor." He didn't move, didn't speak. The silence stretched until I couldn't stand it anymore. "I know about the debt," I whispered, hating how small my voice sounded in the cavernous room. "I'm here to settle it." That made him move. He turned slowly, his face unreadable. Sharp jaw, ice blue eyes. He looked exactly like the rumors had described. Cold, calculating, dangerous. "Do you even know what you're offering, Miss Taylor?" His voice was smooth, but it cut like glass. I I swallowed. I'm here to marry you. The words felt like acid on my tongue. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. He didn't flinch. He didn't blink. You're 4 years late. The air left my lungs. 4 years. He had been waiting? I didn't know. I stammered. I found the papers only last week. Your mother knew exactly what she signed. He cut me off, stepping closer. The contract was clear. Your father, your family, sold you to me as payment. You've belonged to me since you turned 18. His words hit like a punch to the stomach. I wanted to scream that he was wrong, that I didn't belong to anyone. But the words died in my throat. What do you want from me? I whispered, barely able to stand. He took another step, towering over me now, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off his body. A wife, on paper. He leaned down, his voice a low whisper against my ear. Nothing more. Nothing less. We didn't speak after that. He handed me a contract, another piece of paper to trap me. This time, I signed it myself. My hand shook as I scrawled my name at the bottom, sealing my fate. The wedding happened 2 hours later in a glass conference room overlooking the city. No flowers, no vows, no guests, just a man in a suit and a woman who couldn't stop shaking. The officiant read from a legal script. Ethan didn't look at me once. When it was over, I expected him to slip a ring onto my finger. But instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden box. He handed it to me wordlessly. Inside was a simple gold band. No diamonds, no shine, just a single engraving on the inside, for better or worse. My throat tightened. Was this a joke? A cruel reminder of what this marriage really was? He turned and walked toward the door without another word. What happens now? I croaked, clutching the box to my chest like a lifeline. He paused at the doorway, his back still to me. Now, he said coldly, you come home with me. And just like that, I was no longer Hannah Taylor from Michigan. I was Mrs. Ethan Grayson, at least on paper. And something deep inside me whispered, I had just signed away more than my name. His penthouse was as cold as the man who owned it. I followed Ethan through the double-glass doors into a space that could have been torn from a magazine. Clean, modern, and lifeless. White leather furniture. Black marble floors. Chrome fixtures. Not a single photograph. Not a single object that looked like it had ever been touched by a human hand. This was a place designed to impress, not to live. He didn't offer me a tour. He didn't ask if I needed anything. He just kept walking, past the kitchen, down a long hallway, and stopped in front of the last door on the left. He pushed it open and turned to me for the first time since we left the building. This is your room, he said flatly. He didn't step inside, didn't even glance around. You'll stay here. I don't care what you do with the rest of the house. Just stay out of my way. My throat tightened, but I forced myself to nod. Okay. He stared at me for a long moment, his jaw twitching like there was something he wanted to say but couldn't. And then, without another word, he turned and walked away. The door clicked shut behind him. The room was beautiful. Soft gray walls. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline, a king-sized bed with crisp white sheets that looked like they had never been touched. I stood in the center of it all, clutching the little wooden box with the wedding ring still inside. For a second, I wondered if I should just throw it out, the window. But something stopped me. I didn't know why, but I set it gently on the nightstand instead. I unpacked slowly, folding my few belongings into the empty drawers. When I reached for my mother's ring, the silver one she gave me when I turned 16, I slipped it back onto my finger, holding it there like it could anchor me to something real. I don't know how long I sat on the bed, staring out at the city lights. But eventually, the weight of it all crushed down on me, and I lay back on the pillows, curling into myself like a child. And I cried. I didn't see him again for 2 days. He was always gone before I woke, and I never heard him come back. I wandered the penthouse in silence, touching nothing, feeling like an intruder in a museum. I tried to keep busy. I cooked breakfast, though I never knew if he ate it. I cleaned the already spotless kitchen just to have something to do with my hands. I rearranged the books on the shelves in the living room, only to put them back exactly as they were. It was on the 3rd morning, while dusting a row of leather-bound books, that I found it. A letter. It had slipped down between 2 books on the bottom shelf. The paper was old, yellowed around the edges, the handwriting faded but familiar. I didn't mean to read it, but the moment I saw the first line, my heart stopped. Ethan, if you're reading this, then I've failed you again. I always thought I could shield you from the weight of my mistakes, but I see now that I've only made it worse. You've built a kingdom of glass and steel, but I know you. I know you're still the boy who used to stare out the window, searching for something real. Don't let the money steal your heart, son. And don't let the past chain you to a life without love. Forgive me, if you can. Dad. My chest ached as I folded the letter back up, my fingers trembling. I knew exactly what it felt like to carry the weight of someone else's choices, to stand in the ruins of things you never asked for, to wonder if you'd ever feel whole again. Maybe Ethan wasn't as untouchable as he seemed. That night, I heard footsteps outside my door. I held my breath, waiting, half hoping, half terrified, that he would come in. But the footsteps stopped. And then, silence. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, clutching the silver ring on my finger until my knuckles turned white. The next morning, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't keep pretending I was a ghost in my own life. I found him in the kitchen, standing by the window with a cup of coffee in his hand, staring out at the city like it held all the answers he'd never find. He didn't turn when I stepped inside. I found the letter, I said quietly. His body stiffened, the mug in his hand pausing halfway to his lips. I wasn't snooping, I added quickly. It slipped between the books. I'm sorry. He said nothing. I took a shaky breath, clutching the edge of the counter to keep myself upright. I know what it's like, carrying someone else's mistakes. Finally, he turned. His eyes were darker than I remembered, tired, guarded. Don't pretend you know me, Hannah. His voice was low, sharp. But I didn't flinch. Maybe I don't, I whispered. But I think you've been alone for a very long time. He stared at me for what felt like forever. And then, without a word, he set the mug down, turned, and walked out of the room, leaving me standing there, wondering if I had just taken the first step toward breaking the ice. The penthouse was too quiet that night. The kind of quiet that hums in your ears until you can't tell if the sound is real or just your mind trying to fill the emptiness. I sat on the bed, knees pulled to my chest, staring at the little wooden box on the nightstand. The wedding band inside still looked untouched, like it didn't belong to me, like none of this belonged to me. I hadn't seen Ethan since that morning in the kitchen. I had stood there, heart pounding, waiting for him to say something, anything, but he had walked away again like he always did. But tonight felt different. I heard the footsteps first, heavy, slow, steady. They stopped just outside my door. I held my breath, waiting, listening. And then, the doorknob turned. He didn't knock. He didn't speak. Ethan stepped inside, his tall frame filling the doorway like a shadow swallowing the light. I pushed back against the headboard, clutching the edge of the blanket to my chest. My heart thundered so loudly I could barely hear the soft click of the door locking behind him. "Ethan." My voice cracked. He didn't answer. He walked toward me, unbuttoning the top of his shirt with slow, deliberate movements. His face was unreadable, but something in his eyes, something dark, something I couldn't name, made my blood run cold. "What are you doing?" I whispered, already knowing the answer. He stopped at the foot of the bed, his gaze dropping to the blanket in my hands. "Take it off." My throat tightened. "Please. Don't do this." His jaw clenched, but his voice stayed quiet. I waited long enough. Before I could say another word, he reached for the blanket, ripping it from my hands and tossing it aside. I scrambled back, trying to put space between us, but the headboard stopped me cold. He leaned down, his hands landing on either side of me, caging me in. I turned my face away, shaking. "Ethan, please." His fingers slid into my hair, tilting my chin back toward him. His mouth was inches from mine, his breath hot against my lips. "You belong to me, Hannah. You always have." And then he kissed me. Hard, relentless, not like a man seeking affection, but like someone trying to claim something that wasn't his to take. I tried to push him back, but he grabbed my wrists, pinning them above my head with one hand. His other hand slid down my body, rough and impatient, until it found the hem of my nightgown. In one brutal motion, he tore it open, leaving me bare beneath him. I gasped, twisting beneath his weight. But he didn't let go. His mouth moved lower, down my neck, my collarbone, until he found my breast. He sucked hard, biting down on the sensitive skin, his hand kneading the other, twisting my nipple between his fingers until I cried out, "Ethan, stop. Please, I'm begging you." But he wasn't listening. He slid his hand between my legs, forcing them apart, and pressed 2 fingers deep inside me without warning. I sobbed, my whole body arching away from him, but there was nowhere to go. He pumped his fingers deeper, curling them just right, hitting that spot that made my body betray me even as my heart screamed, "No." "You feel that?" he whispered against my skin. "That's mine." He pulled his fingers out slowly, slick and glistening, before shoving them into his mouth with a dark, guttural groan that made my stomach twist. "God, you taste like sin." I tried again to fight him, but he grabbed my waist, flipping me onto my stomach, dragging me to the edge of the bed. "No, Ethan, please." I felt him behind me, the rough drag of his belt unbuckling, the sound of his zipper. And then, one brutal thrust, deep and hard, splitting me wide open. I screamed, clutching the sheets as he drove into me again and again, each movement harder than the last, deeper, relentless. Tears streamed down my face as I choked on sobs, my body rocking with every brutal push. My knees buckled, but he held me there, hips slamming into me, filling me so deep I could barely breathe. "Say it," he growled, leaning over me, his teeth grazing my ear. "Say you're mine." I shook my head, biting my lip to keep from screaming again. "Say it!" He thrust deeper, harder, until my whole body shook beneath him. You own me," I gasped, the words burning my throat. "That's right," he hissed. "All of you. Every inch." He gripped my hips tighter, his movements growing frantic, rough, desperate. "Take it," he groaned, voice breaking. "Take all of me." With one final brutal thrust, he buried himself deep inside me, holding me there, his body trembling as he spilled himself inside me, hot and thick, filling me completely. I collapsed onto the bed, shaking, sobbing, broken. He stayed like that for a moment, his breath heavy against my back, before pulling out and walking away without a word. I lay there for what felt like hours, staring at the wall, feeling him leak out of me, the physical reminder of what he had just taken, and somewhere deep inside something shattered. I didn't move for hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even blink. I lay there on the bed, my body aching in ways I didn't have words for, staring at the darkened window as the city glowed quietly outside, oblivious to what had just happened on the 52nd floor. Somewhere, down the hall, I heard the faint hum of a shower turning on. He was cleaning me off his skin like I was nothing more than a bad decision. I pressed my hand to my stomach, feeling the soreness between my thighs, the unmistakable heat of him still inside me. I should have felt rage. I should have gotten up, packed my things, and walked out. But I couldn't. I couldn't even sit up. Felt hollow. The next morning, I woke to the sound of a door closing. I heard footsteps, keys jingling, then silence. Ethan was gone. I lay there for a long time, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had imagined it all. But the ache between my legs told me I hadn't. I forced myself out of bed. Every step felt like walking through wet cement. My legs were heavy, my body foreign, like it didn't belong to me anymore. I stood under the shower until the water ran cold, scrubbing my skin until it turned red. But no matter how hard I scrubbed, I could still feel him, on me, inside me. I sank to the floor, curling my knees to my chest as the water poured over me. My sobs echoed off the tile walls, filling the empty space like a song I couldn't turn off. I don't remember how I made it to the kitchen, but somehow I did. I stood there in Ethan's oversized white shirt, too shaken to put on anything else, and stared at the sleek, untouched appliances. My hands moved without thinking, filling the kettle, lighting the stove, making tea. Something so simple, so normal. Something my mother used to do when she didn't know how to fix the world. I could almost hear her voice humming in the back of my mind. I held on to that sound like a rope pulling me out of a pit. The next few days blurred together. Ethan didn't come home, or if he did, he didn't come near me. I never heard him, never saw him. I drifted from room to room like a shadow, trying to feel real again. I cooked breakfast. I washed the sheets. I rearranged the books on the shelves again, but nothing made the walls feel any less like a prison. It wasn't until the third morning that I noticed it. On the kitchen island. A small bundle of dried lavender. I stared at it for a long time, my breath catching in my throat. It was tied with a thin white ribbon, placed exactly where I had left my tea mug the night before. I reached out with trembling fingers, brushing the brittle petals. I knew that smell. I knew it better than any other in the world. My mother's favorite. I pressed the lavender to my chest, closing my eyes as the scent wrapped around me like a blanket I hadn't felt in years. He had seen it. He had noticed. For the first time since I arrived, Ethan had left something for me. No words, no explanation. Just lavender. That night, I found myself standing in the kitchen again, staring at the empty stovetop. Without thinking, I started cooking. I wasn't even sure if I remembered how to make anything decent, but my hands moved, like they knew what to do. I cracked eggs into a pan, chopped vegetables, stirred the pot. I set the table for two, even though I was sure he wouldn't show. But when I turned to put the plates down, he was there, leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, watching me, My heart stuttered in my chest. It's nothing fancy, I whispered, unsure if I should stop or keep going. He didn't move, didn't speak. The silence stretched so long I started to shake again. But then, he pushed off the door frame and walked toward the table. He pulled out a chair and sat down across from me. He didn't look at me, didn't say a word. But he ate. I watched him, barely breathing, as he lifted his fork and took the first bite. Then another, and another. Tears burned my eyes, but I blinked them away. I sat down opposite him and picked up my own fork, my hands trembling as I tried to eat without falling apart. We finished in silence. When I stood to clear the plates, I felt his eyes on me. Heavy, unreadable. I turned, expecting him to get up and leave like always. But he didn't. He sat there watching me clean the table, his expression unreadable. And for the first time since the night he broke me, he didn't walk away. He stayed. I didn't dare speak. I wiped down the kitchen counter, my heart hammering as I felt his gaze on my back. I kept waiting for the sound of his chair scraping back, for his footsteps retreating down the hallway like every other time. But they didn't come. When I finally turned around, Ethan was still sitting there, elbows on the table, hands folded like he was holding himself together by a thread. I had never seen him sit that still before. Something about the way he watched me. It wasn't cold this time. It wasn't hunger or cruelty. It was something I couldn't name. Something that felt almost like uncertainty. Did I do something wrong? I hated how small my voice sounded, but I had to ask. I couldn't stand the silence any longer. He shook his head once, slowly. No. One word. But it landed like a weight on my chest. I moved, toward the sink, rinsing the plates with shaky hands, letting the hum of running water fill the space between us. I didn't expect him to speak again. I had learned not to expect anything from him. But when he finally broke the silence, his voice was rougher than I'd ever heard it. No one's ever cooked for me before. I froze, the plate slipping from my fingers and clinking softly in the sink. I turned, leaning against the counter to keep my legs from giving out. Not even family? His jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. But then he leaned back in his chair, staring past me toward the window, like he was looking at something only he could see. My mother left when I was 10, he said quietly. She walked out one morning, didn't say goodbye. I haven't heard from her since. I pressed a hand to my stomach, not to steady myself, but because I knew that feeling. The ache of someone leaving without explanation, without closure. I'm sorry, I whispered, meaning it more than I ever thought I could. He let out a soft breath that sounded more like a bitter laugh. You don't have to be. I swallowed hard. I do. Because I know what it feels like. He looked at me then, really looked at me. Not the way he had before, calculating, cold, but like he was seeing me for the first time. Do you? He asked, almost like he didn't believe it. I nodded. My dad left us with nothing but debt. He left me with you. His eyes darkened, but not with anger. With something else. Something heavier. And yet you showed up, he said under his breath. You signed that paper. Because I had to. You didn't have to cook for me. The air between us thickened. My chest felt tight again, but not with fear this time. With something warmer, more dangerous. I crossed my arms over my chest, trying to protect myself from something I didn't fully understand. I didn't do it for you. I lied. I did it for me. to remember who I was before all this. He stood then, pushing back his chair so slowly it made my skin prickle. He took a step toward me. Then another. I held my breath as he stopped just inches away. He didn't touch me. Didn't have to. Do you want to leave? His voice cracked, barely more than a whisper. Because I won't stop you. Not again. My lips trembled, but I shook my head. I don't know what I want. His hand twitched at his side, like he wanted to reach for me but didn't trust himself to do it. I never meant to. That night. He trailed off, looking away like the words tasted like poison. I pressed my back harder against the counter, tears stinging the corners of my eyes. You didn't stop. He closed his eyes, his throat, working like he was trying to swallow down everything he couldn't say. I know. We stood there, locked in that breathless, awful, fragile moment, until the silence felt like it was about to crush me. But then he did something I never expected. He sank to his knees in front of me. I gasped softly, covering my mouth with my hand. As I stared down at him, Ethan Grayson, powerful, ruthless, untouchable, kneeling on the cold tile floor like a man on the edge of breaking. I don't know how to fix this, he whispered, his voice cracking. I don't know how to fix you, or me, or any of this. I didn't move. I didn't trust myself to breathe. But I swear to God, Hannah, he said, looking up at me with something raw in his eyes. If you let me, I'll try. Something shattered in me again, but it didn't feel like breaking this time. It felt like something beginning. I slid down to my knees in front of him too, the cold tile biting into my skin as I reached out with shaking hands, cupping his face, the way I had always imagined someone should have. You don't have to fix me, I whispered, my voice breaking. Just don't break me again. He leaned into my touch like a starving man, and for the first time, he didn't push me away. He stayed. I didn't know what we were after that night. Not husband and wife. Not enemies either. We were something. Fragile. Hanging by a thread neither of us dared to pull too hard. He started coming home earlier. He started sitting at the table when I cooked. Sometimes he even stood close enough that I could feel his breath on my skin when he spoke. But he never touched me again. Not once. He kept his distance, like he knew if he pushed too far, the fragile thing between us would snap in two. And for the first time, I wanted him to cross that line. The call came on a Tuesday. I was watering the plants by the window when my phone buzzed on the counter. I almost didn't answer. I didn't recognize the number, but something in my gut told me to pick up. Hannah? My heart stopped. Mom? Her voice cracked on the other end. I didn't want to call, but it's bad, honey. I'm in the hospital. The doctor said, my heart. I pressed a hand to my mouth, sinking to the floor as the words hit me like a truck. I'm coming. I whispered through the tears already burning my throat. I'm coming home. Ethan didn't stop me when I told him. He didn't offer to come. He didn't ask if I needed help. He just stood there in the doorway, watching me pack the same small bag I had carried when I left Michigan. I grabbed my coat and headed for the door, but just as my hand touched the handle, his voice stopped me. Hannah, I turned, clutching my bag to my chest like a shield. Do you even want me to come after you? His voice was low, almost defeated. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat too big to speak around, so I didn't answer. I just opened the door and walked out. The taxi ride to the train station felt longer than it should have. My heart pounded the entire way, my fingers white-knuckling the strap of my bag. I didn't know what I was more afraid of, leaving, or the fact that Ethan hadn't stopped me. When the train pulled in, I stepped toward the platform, my feet moving like they weighed 100 pounds each. I was halfway down the platform when I heard it. "Hannah!" I froze. I turned slowly. Breath catching in my throat. Ethan was running. His jacket flapped behind him, his hair a mess from the wind. And for the first time, I saw him without that mask he wore so well. He looked desperate. He reached me just as I turned to face him, grabbing my wrist, chest heaving. "Don't leave like this," he rasped, his voice raw. "Not again." Tears blurred my vision. "I have to. My mom. I know." His hands trembled as they cupped my face. "I know you have to go, but don't leave me behind." I shook my head, tears spilling down my cheeks. "Why? Why does it matter to you now?" His face crumbled. "Because I can't breathe when you're not near me," he whispered. "Because when you walked into my life, you ruined every wall I ever built, and I didn't even know I wanted them ruined until now." My breath hitched. "I don't need your money," he choked out. "I don't care about the contract. I don't care about the debt. I just want you," I sobbed, clutching his wrists like they were the only thing keeping me standing. "You broke me, Ethan," I whispered, my voice shaking. "You broke everything I was." He dropped to his knees right there on the platform, in front of everyone, his face twisted in something close to agony. "Then let me put you back together," he begged. "Please, Hannah, let me try." The train roared in the distance, but I couldn't move. Not with him on his knees in front of me, tears in his eyes, his hands holding on like he'd die if I pulled away. I sank to my knees in front of him, just like I had that night in the kitchen. I pressed my forehead to his, both of us trembling. "I can't do this alone," I whispered. "You won't have to," he breathed back. "I'll come with you. I'll take care of your mom. I'll take care of you. Just don't shut me out." I let out a sob that broke something open inside me. I didn't know if I could trust him again. I didn't know if the pain would ever really go away. But in that moment, I knew one thing. I didn't want to walk away without him. We made it to Michigan just before midnight. The old house looked smaller than I remembered, but it smelled the same, like rain-soaked wood and the faintest trace of lavender. Ethan stood awkwardly in the doorway while I rushed to my mother's side. She was weak, pale, but she smiled when she saw me. "You came back," she whispered, her voice barely there. I choked on a sob as I kissed her forehead. "I'm here, Mom. I'm not going anywhere." When she finally drifted off to sleep, I turned to find Ethan standing in the hallway, hands in his pockets, watching me with that same lost expression he wore on the platform. I walked to him slowly, reaching for his hand. He let me take it, and, for the first time, he didn't let go. We stayed in Michigan longer than I expected. What started as a weekend turned into a week, and then another. The city didn't call us back, and for once, Ethan didn't seem to care. He slept on the old pull-out couch in the living room, even though the house was too small for a man like him. His long legs hung over the edge, his suit jacket slung over the back of a kitchen chair like he was trying to blend into a life that had never belonged to him. But somehow, he fit. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but honestly. Every morning I found him sitting at the kitchen table, sipping coffee from one of Mom's chipped mugs, staring out the window like he was seeing the world for the first time. We spent our days at the hospital, sitting quietly on either side of Mom's bed. He didn't say much, but his presence filled the room like something steady and solid, like a foundation I never knew I needed. He held her hand when I couldn't. He sat with her when I needed to step out. He whispered things to her I never heard, but I saw the way her eyes softened when he did. One evening, I found him on the porch, staring at the horizon like he was searching for something that didn't exist. The sun was setting, casting the sky in shades of gold and violet. He didn't hear me approach. "Penny for your thoughts?" I asked softly, leaning against the doorframe. He didn't turn, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "I've spent my whole life building walls." I swallowed hard, walking toward him, my bare feet silent on the old wood. "And now?" He let out a quiet breath, his shoulders slumping. "I'm tired of living behind them." I stood beside him, wrapping my arms around myself as the cool evening air kissed my skin. "What do you want, Ethan?" He turned then, his eyes searching mine like he was afraid of the answer. "I want this." My heart skipped. "Michigan." He shook his head slowly. "No. You." My breath caught. He reached for my hand, threading his fingers through mine like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "I want the girl who makes tea in the morning even when she's falling apart. I want the woman who shows up when she's terrified. I want the person who sees me when no one else does." I swallowed the lump rising in my throat, my voice barely more than a whisper. "You broke me." His jaw trembled, but he didn't let go. "I know." He took a step closer, pressing our foreheads together, his voice breaking. "But you put me back together." Tears slipped down my cheeks, but I didn't wipe them away. "I don't know how to trust this." He cupped my face gently, his thumb tracing the corner of my mouth. "Then let me earn it. Every day, for the rest of our lives." We didn't need another ceremony. No audience. No vows. We stood there on the porch, barefoot and broken, and promised something bigger than either of us had ever known. We promised this. The messy, imperfect, quiet this. The next morning, Ethan made a phone call I never expected him to make. He canceled the deal he had been working on for months, the one that would have given him another skyscraper in Manhattan. "I'm staying here," he said simply, hanging up without another word. I watched him from the kitchen doorway, my heart swelling with something too big to name. "You're really staying?" He crossed the room in 3 long strides, cupping my face in his hands, pressing his lips to my forehead. "Home isn't glass and steel, Hannah. It's you." We spent the next week moving Mom back into the house, setting up her room with soft blankets and pillows, filling the kitchen with groceries she insisted we didn't need. Ethan carried her up the stairs when she was too tired to walk. He fixed the broken railing on the porch. He repainted the door that had been peeling since I was 12. He turned this house back into a home. One night, after Mom had gone to bed, we sat on the porch again, tangled in an old quilt, listening to the crickets hum in the dark. I rested my head on Ethan's chest, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing. "What happens when the city calls you back?" I whispered, afraid to hear the answer. He tipped my chin up, brushing his lips softly over mine, the gentlest he had ever touched me. "It already did." I frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" He leaned his forehead against mine, his voice steady and certain. "I called my lawyer this morning. I had him dissolve the contract." My breath hitched. You what?" He cupped my face, his eyes shining in the moonlight. "You don't owe me anything, Hannah. You never did. And I never want you to stay because of a piece of paper." Tears spilled down my cheeks, my heart cracking wide open. Why would you do that?" He smiled softly, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. "Because I love you. Because I need you to choose me, just like I'm choosing you." I sobbed into his chest, holding on to him like I never wanted to let go. And for the first time, I didn't feel broken. I felt whole. We stayed on that porch until the stars faded into morning, and when he whispered into my hair, his voice trembling, with something raw and real, I knew it wasn't a promise written on paper. You're my home, Hannah. Now and always. And this time, I believed him. Thank you for staying with me all the way to the end. If this story touched something in your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more powerful emotional journeys like this one. Your support means the world, and I can't wait to share the next story with you.